Today we're looking at Theme 2, Rights and Responsibilities of the AQA GCSE Citizenship course. We're looking at rights and responsibilities within the legal system, specifically what are the police powers. The criminal justice system refers to the investigation of a crime from the initial investigation to acquittal or conviction. It is one of the major public services in the country. What we mean by public service is a service that is provided by the government and paid for by the taxpayer. It employs 400,000 staff across the following agencies: the Police Service, the Crown Prosecution Service, the Majesty's Court Service, the National Offender Management Services, so prisons and probation, and finally the Youth Justice Board, the public body which attempts to prevent offending by children and young people. We're going to be looking at the police service in a lot more detail in this session, and we'll be looking at the other agencies of the criminal justice system over following sessions. In session 3, we've got quite a bit to get through. Firstly, we'll be looking at the keywords you need to remember. Secondly, we'll be moving on to what the structure of the police force actually is. So we will be looking at roles and ranks within the police force. Thirdly, we'll move on to be looking at the difference between the Metropolitan Police, City of London Police, and the Police and Crime Commissioners. We'll then move on to look at the Police and Criminal Evidence Act of 1984. We'll also be exploring the powers of the police and particularly looking at certain scenarios. We'll also look at case studies, the Stephen Lawrence case, the Hillsborough case study, and the Guildford 4 case. Next, we'll move on to looking at the role of the Independent Police Complaints Commission and the Independent Office for Police Conduct. Finally, we'll look at the impact of budget cuts to the police force. As you can see, there's quite a bit to get through, so we're going to break this session up into little chunks. The following part will be focusing on what the keywords are to remember, and then we'll move on to the structure of the police force in terms of its roles and ranks. There will be following videos to cover the rest of the bullet points. Arrest is the action of seizing someone and taking them into custody. Police can do this based on the suspicion of you committing a crime. What you need to remember here is that the police can arrest you based on suspicion. They don't actually need evidence, but enough suspicion for them to be able to take you into custody. The second word is charge. This is when you formally accuse a person of a criminal offence. This is also done by the Crown Prosecution Service, who we will learn about in another session. The police can also charge if they are to issue a warrant. Evidence is needed to be charged. So the difference between arrest and charge, as you can see, is very different because you need evidence to charge, but just suspicion to arrest. The next key word is conviction. This is a formal declaration by the verdict of a jury or the decision of a judge in a court of law that someone is guilty of a criminal offence. So, if a person is found guilty in a court, they are convicted. So a conviction happens once someone has been arrested, then charged, then gone to court and has been given a guilty verdict and therefore convicted. The next key word is acquittal. This is basically the opposite to a conviction. It is a judgment or verdict that a person is not guilty of the crime with which they have been charged. We have covered the keywords to remember. Now we are going to move on to look at the structure of the police force and their roles and ranks. Before we learn about that, we need to know more about what police officers do and what their role actually is. So police officers enforce and uphold law and order through the detection, prevention and investigation of crime. What we mean by that is that they detect crime, possibly through stops and searches, for example, that they prevent it, and that they investigate it, so they collect the evidence to ensure that the crime is investigated fully and properly. And ultimately, that helps to prevent crime. After qualifying as a police officer, some choose to specialise in a specific branch, such as the drug squad or the criminal investigation department. The information from this table is taken from the 31st of March 2015 in England and Wales, and it shows the police workforce. Let me talk you through this. The police force is organised by a ranking system that progresses from police constable, which is down here, on the lower end of the rank, and on the table you can see there's 98,954 police constables, to a chief constable. It's all the way up here. And again, you can see that there's 210 chief constables in the police workforce in 2015. So as you can see, the police force is mainly made up of police constables here. almost 100,000. PCSOs stands for Police Community Support Officers, and they are uniformed staff whose role it is to support the work of police officers within their community, acting as the eyes and ears on the streets. Then you've got special constables as well. They are members of the public who volunteer to undertake police functions on a part-time basis. A special constable's main role is to conduct local intelligence-based patrols and to take part in crime prevention initiatives, often targeted at specific problem areas. Here is a definition of special constables, which I suggest you write down. Volunteers who help the police on a part-time basis in their local community. They do not have police powers, but they wear a police uniform and assist the police in their community. We've reached the end of the second part of this session, the structure of the police force in terms of their roles and ranks.